Alexander Real Gaming coming at y'all with another video. And in today's video, I'm going over my deck profile for Carrot. She is one of my favorite leaders in the One Piece trading card game. I really only play waifu characters, and I haven't made a ton of One Piece content lately, so I just wanted to share my Carrot list. Now, this list isn't anything trying to be like hyper competitive. I usually don't play One Piece that way. I usually build decks that I like. They're usually based off waifu characters, and then I kind of just try to keep it very thematic on that point. Now, granted, I do add a couple cards that, you know, are out of theme a little bit, but only because I'm trying to, you know, make the deck a little more competitive. But this is the deck list here. We'll go through each card, and I'll kind of give you the reasons of why you play it. But let's go over the leader for Carrot first. Carrot, this is effect, activate main once returned. If you have a Minks type character, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost 5 or less. So Carrot is a deck that usually tries to control your opponent's board early. And then you try to like take characters on the board that they play early, and then try to get some value that way, and then flood the board with your Minks characters, and then hopefully attack for game. Before they get into a point where, you know, this deck has a lot of issues with anything play costs, you know, 5, 7, and up. 7s you can usually deal with a little bit, but anything that's above 7, you really have a hard time in this deck getting over with, and especially the 8,000 DP is a tough part too. But a very versatile control-based leader is what Carrot does, which is really cool. I love this art for her. For her normal art, the alt art is really cool too. But you can see here we run a lot of small drop characters. Starting off with Wanda is one of our one drops. She is a 1k counter, 2000 DP, and then she says on play, look at the top 5 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to one Minks type character other than Wanda, add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of the deck any order. She's just your searcher in the deck, and to be honest, a lot of times in games I'm controlling the board with Wanda. I'll play Wanda out to search. Now I have a Minks character on the board, then I get to, you know, use my Carrot's effect to rest something, and then hopefully able to, you know, swing into that character with Carrot, or with the Wanda. She is 2k, so she is able to out a lot of other searchers. I'll go through the ones we're running a 4 of. Definitely 4 of the Tristan. She is just your Minks. I love the art on this card too. Really cool art. She is a 1k counter. 3,000 power here for her power. And she's really good. You just drop her down for 1. Now you got a 3,000 on the board. And you're going to use 2 Dawn a lot of the time on top of her to, you know, swing early with the Tristan. And like I said, her and the Wanda are going to be the ones that you're going to be using to clear off their small bodies. If they ever play any searchers, once you have one of these 2 out, you just rest that character with the Carrot, and then you swing over it with the Tristan or the Wanda. We are also running, let's touch on the other one drop. We only run 2 of this Roddy. I'm not sure how you say his name. I'm not familiar with him from the show too much. I don't remember him a whole lot, but he is just a 1 drop. We only run 2 of this guy. He is 2,000 power and a 1k counter. So you have a lot of 1k counters in this deck, but not a lot of 2k counters. He's on play. If your leader has the Minks type and your opponent has 7 or more rested cards, KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters at the cost of 2 or less. This really only comes up in situations later in the game where, you know, the 7 or more rested cards counts their Dawn. So, like, once they play, you know, 2 characters and they have 5 rested Dawn, now you're able to KO up one of their rested 2 costs or less characters. He's just a way to clear off any pesky small bodies they have, like, on play. So, like, say you rest that character with your Carrot, you play out the Roddy, and then he lets you, you know, pop that 2 costs or less. It's just situations where he comes up a little bit more than just being able to attack into him with the Tristan and the Wanda. But you can see here, we are running a lot of small bodies. Going to the most important card in the deck is Milky. Very pretty art on Milky. I love this card. She is your 2k counter, so you run 4 of her, or I run 4 of her in my deck. She does have 0 power, which is an issue. She is a 2 drop, which is not that bad, but she is activate main. You may rest this character. If your leader has the Minks type, set up to one of your Dawn cards as active, which is really, really good in this deck, letting you get that Dawn effect back. I don't run a ton of counters or anything like that. I usually use that one Dawn to, you know, put on a character so I can attack aggressively with her. So play her out, get that Dawn back. But you mainly want to keep her in your hand for that 2k counter. Like I said, we don't have a ton of counters in the deck that are 2k. and so she's very, very important. I think before we go through the deck any further, though, I want to touch on the most important card in the deck is going to be the Zoe. This is going to be your stage card. I do run this at a 2 of. I think a 3 of makes it a little clunky. We don't have a lot of ways to trash cards in our hand. So you do want to see this card a lot, but it isn't mandatory for the deck to do what it needs to do. It costs 3. Later in EBO2, we get another carrot that searches this Zoe out and plays it for free. I think once I get that carrot in the deck, I will switch this deck around a lot because I'll be running 4 of that carrot and probably run 3 or 4 Zoes, and then I can just probably try to run a card that gives me a trash outlet. But that's for the future. I am excited for that card to come out, but it just says activate main. You may rest this stage. If your leader has the Minks type, set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. End of your turn, set up to one of your Minks type characters active. So this is really, really cool, being able to use the Zoe to get your Milky back, and then Milky will give you back another Dawn as well when you rest her. So you rest the Milky, get the Dawn back, then use your Zoe here to, at the end of the, set one of your Dawn as active again, so now you got 2 Dawn back, and then end of your turn you set the Milky back to active so you don't have to worry about them swinging over it, and then they'll have to use a kill spell on her or something, or a character, because she is really important in the deck. And then we'll just touch on the event since we're here. Electrical Luna. This card is really, really cool. I love the art on it. It has carrot just absolutely popping off here. It does cost you 3, which is not crazy. It finally has a trigger. You'll see in this deck we do not have a lot of triggers at all, man. It's kind of rough, but you just rest up to one of their characters. It can save your life. We run this one as a 3 of in the deck. It is really strong. It says activate, effect main. All of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 7 or less will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. So really good here, being able to tap their whole board down, and that's why I'm saying this is a control deck, but you do want to be really aggressive trying to push the state of the game early before the 7 Dawn turn. Once you do get to 7, you know, if they have the characters that are 7 or less, you just keep them all tapped down. If they try to swing into you, and then keep them from being able to stand back up and swing back at your characters. You want to keep your characters safe while controlling their characters. But going back through the list, I do run 2 of the Shishishilian. This card is really cool. It is a 1k counter, only costs 3. He is 4,000. I do wish he was 5, but that's okay. He has on play up to one of your opponent's rested characters that cost a 3 or less will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. So you are resting their characters with your carrot and then using some of your other characters to keep them tapped down. If you don't want to swing into the bodies, that way you can swing into their leader. And he helps you do that, keeping a small body tapped down. We do have Concealot. This card is really cool. 3-drop, 4k. Like I said, I do wish a lot of these cards are 5k, but maybe they thought that would make the tech a little too good. It is a 1k counter. He is, when attacking up to one of your opponent's rested characters that cost a 4 or less, will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. So you can see here, you're able just to keep their characters tapped down. The one issue that you will find is if your opponent has a lot of 2Ks in their hand, they're able to get out of your attacks. That becomes an issue, but anything low on the game, 5 or less, you're going to keep tapped down with some of these character cards. Going into one of the best cards in the deck, I've said that about a lot of cards. Definitely Milky, definitely Pedro, and definitely the Zoe are some of the more important cards you want to see. But Pedro lets you, he is a blocker. He is for Dawn play, 5k power. He gives you the 1k counter in hand. And he really has a lot going on. He's a blocker, which is really cool. And then he says, on KO, choose one. Rest up to one of your opponent's Dawn cards, or KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 6 or less. So a really versatile card in the deck, being able to manipulate what your opponent's doing, either KO one of their rested characters or getting that Dawn card. A lot of times the Dawn card, especially in a lot of purple matchups, will come in clutch for you because then now they can Gum Giant you, which is really, really good. Have to run for the Pedro. I do wish a lot of these cards you see here, we don't have any life triggers in the deck, so we're having to take all these to hand other than that Electrical Luna, which is the one part about this deck that feels really bad. Continuing on with our 4 Dawn drops, this is Peckham's. This is 4 Dawn 6,000 power, which is really, really strong. This character is one of your beat sticks, but I am only running it at a 2 because it doesn't do a lot to facilitate the control aspect of the game. It just says, this character, if this character is active, your Minks type characters with a cost of 3 or less, other than Peckham's, cannot be KO'd by effect. So this just lets you be able to keep your characters on the board. You're almost never swinging with this Peckham's unless there's absolutely a body you have to get rid of. You're just playing the Peckham's down, keep your little characters safe in the game. That way now your opponent's going to have to swing into them because although those little characters are usually easy to clear, once you play the Peckhams out, now your opponent has to get rid of them by other means, whether, there are other things in the game, sending it to the sideline or whatever, or other effects. You don't have to KO stuff, but the Peckhams gives you some way to keep your little guys safe, your little ladies and guys safe. That way you're able to, push the pressure with them. Because you're playing them early. You don't want to go many turns into 10 Don. You want to try to get, pressure on the game early. One of the strongest cards in the deck is definitely going to be this Ryuma. He is the first character I'm showing y'all that is not a Minks character. He is a Land of Wando Thriller Bark Pirates, but he is 4-drop, 6,000 power. So a really strong card. And he synergizes really, really well with this deck because our leader is going to rest one of their characters that are 5 cost or less. Then you play the Ryuma. On play, KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. And then when he's KO'd, you do that effect again. So he's really, really versatile in this deck. You're going to be resting a lot of their characters that are 4 or less. And he will get you a lot of clear on bodies. And he's 6k, which is, really good. I used to run him at a 4 of, but I tried to make some room for the Roddy. Because Roddy does come up sometimes being able to, get some of those pesky small bodies off the board. But I do miss maybe the 4 Ryumas. I have done a lot of testing, getting these down. Now, going on to some of the carrot cards. This is your 5-drop, 5,000 power. This is one of your few 2k counters in hand. And it just says, end of your turn, set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. Like I said, I'm only running this card just to stay pretty true to the archetype. And you really only want to keep her in your hand for that 2k counter. The end of the turn effect doesn't come up very often because, like I said, I don't run any counters in the deck. I used to. I'll probably put them back in because there's a lot of ways to get, Dawn back. But I just feel like this carrot is better off just being a 2k in your hand because she doesn't really do a ton for you. If she just said, in your main phase like the other ones do, get that Dawn back as active, I think she'd be a lot more useful. But I usually only ever keep her in my hand as a 6k counter. Like I said, this other carrot will be the one that you're trying to put on the board and put pressure. It does have a 1k counter. It costs 5 Dawn, and it is 6,000 power. No trigger, but she does have on play and when attacking, up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 7 or less will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. So like I said, we're slowly progressing from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drops that we can, keep rested down. As long as you can keep this carrot safe, you are able to control all their smaller characters on the board, and then you're able to tap them down with your leader effect. And then she is really awesome because she lets you get 7 or less, which comes in clutch with our Electrical Luna that we were talking about earlier. Continuing on, we do run another 5-drop 6k, and it's going to be our Inuyurashi. This card is really cool. I like him a lot. He is a 1k counter, 5 Dawn, 6,000 power. He is your Minks, and he does say, on play, if your leader has the Minks type, up to 2 of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 5 or less will not become active in your opponent's next refresh. This card is really good. Really, really good. Say they try to swing at through you with some of their smaller bodies. Now you just play out the Inuyurashi on your turn 3 or 4 and keep those bodies tapped down, and now you can just swing at their leaders. So you will see that you're able to keep a lot of their characters tapped down. Now you don't have a lot of ways to kill characters, but if you're trying to swing into your life and you keep their characters from attacking you, now they're really just having to swing at you with their leader. And a lot of times you'll find a lot of people swinging at your characters with their leader instead of, your life. This card is really, really good. Only run it at a 2 because you really do want to be low to the ground. I used to run a lot more of these bigger Minks characters, but I think you have to stay low to the ground and try to apply as much pressure on your opponent as you can, because you do not want these games to go long. You want to try to finish the games early, and I do wish the deck had a little bit more rush aspects, which is why we're running this package here. 3 of the Neko Mamushi. I always call this Nekomaru for some reason, but Neko Mamushi. Really cool character. 5 Dawn, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter in hand. So you see a lot of the characters have counters. We have a ton of counters in the deck, but not a lot of triggers. This guy has effect on play. If your opponent has 7 or more rested cards, this does count their Dawn. So by the time you get to him, if they're on their 5 or 6 Dawn turn, and they have at least one character that they played and swung with or something that's rested, Now you get to have Rush. This character gains Rush during this turn, so you can play him if they have 7 or more rested characters and he has Rush. An easy way to put a big body on the board, 5 Dawn, 6,000 power. That way you can clear off some of their bodies or get that good Rush in for game that they may not see coming. You really don't want to show them this card until you know you can make it really impactful. Control the board early with the other characters. Put your Dawn on them. Try not to play a lot of your characters out that are these 5 costs, so that way you can surprise them with this Rush later in the game. Going into the top end, there's not any top end for Minks characters yet for some reason, so we are running a package of the Hody Jones. 2 of this Hody Jones, it just gives you the Rush. On play, rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn, which is really good because you can rest their Dawn, and then add the top card of your life to your hand. If you don't have a card in your life and you're at 0, you don't have to do this, but if you do have a life, you do have to add it to your hand. This Hody Jones is really, really, really good because he lets you pick up to any 2 of their characters or their Dawn cards, and so you play out the Hody Jones, and then now if they have a pesky character you need to keep tapped down, you can keep them tapped down with your other characters, so you still got 3 Dawn, and there are plays that you can do in here for 3 Dawn that can keep some of these other characters down. The Hody Jones is really, really good in this deck with helping you, be able to push these games. Like I said, you don't want to be on 10 Dawn very often. If you're going multiple turns into 10 Dawn turns, you are going to lose the game because you don't have a ton of power. But we do run some cards that get us there. We are running one of the Roronoa Zoro. This card is really good. It's been good forever. If you don't know what it does, it is 9 Dawn to play, 9,000 power, and this is how you finish out games. This is one of your few late game cards that can finish out stuff for you when attacking once per turn. You may rest 1 Dawn, set this character as active, activate main once per turn. You may rest 2 Dawn, set him as active, so you bring him down. Hopefully he lives for 1 turn. You get to swing, pay the Dawn, get him back. Swing again, then activate main, pay the 2 Dawn, get him back. So you see here, he is one of our finishers. But you are running him at 1 because you want to end the game sooner with the Hody Jones and the Nekomamushi. That name is so hard to say. You want to finish the game with these characters first before you have to wait to get to this turn. But with that being said, I am running 2 of the Dofis. This Dofi is just too strong not to run out of 2 of because this just helps you push for game big time. If you ever do have to get that 10 Dawn turn, you have a really impactful card with this Dofi. He is on play. Up to 3 of your opponent's rested leader or character cards will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. Really good being able to tap down the leaders with this card and the characters. That way they can't swing into you. Say you're at 0 life. And now you finally made it to the 10 Dawn. You can just rest everything down. They can't refresh, and hopefully you can, swarm the board with your little characters. That is the deck profile for this. Please let me know. Try this deck out. Like I do think that this is a competent deck. It is really good. I do think that there are ways you can make this leader way more effective just by running like generic green good stuff. That is probably the best way to play it, but I do have a lot of fun playing it with the Minks package and characters because it's very on theme and that's the way I like to play, but I do add some cards to try to help me get there. I do have a lot of fun playing this deck. Let me know. I'll put an image at the end. I'll link the deck profile in the descriptions. Let me know what y'all think about this deck. Please, if you try it, let me know what you think about it for sure. Leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. Peace.